Hello, Algebra 1 students. Today we're talking about topic 5C, multiplying with monomials and binomials. So it's on page 6 of your note guide, should look like this. Bear with me, my eye pencil stopped working, so we have to use the stylus. So it's a little bit wider and bigger, so sorry if it's a little bit messier than typically to do this recording. But anyways, so today's essential question says, how are adding and multiplying polynomials different from each other? We were adding and subtracting polynomials before we went on to break. That is the Khan Academy. That is your homework. That's what your quiz is going to be on Thursday, is on adding and subtracting. Today we are moving on to taking a couple notes on multiplying polynomials. So we can do a little bit of practice on that on Wednesday when we do our live session, along with we'll also do some practicing on adding and subtracting for your quiz on Thursday. So topic 5C. So looking at here, number 1, it says multiplying a polynomial by a monomial. Sorry, I'm trying to get this straight on here. So there you go. Is using the distributive property. So this is the distributive. Right, so we multiply with the distributive property, especially when we're just, a monomial, remember, is just one term by itself. So, so this first example, number 1, says 4b times 5b squared plus b plus 6, which means we're going to take this 4b and we're going to multiply it by 5b squared. So if we wrote that out, we would say 4b times 5b squared. Right? And then we're going to do the second one. A lot of us like to draw little lines up top, but then we forget we got to multiply it every single term inside. So then we're going to add 4b times 1b, because really there's a 1 in front of that b. And then we're going to do it also to the last one. So it's plus 4b times 6. Right? So we have distributed that 4b all the way across. So 4 times 5 is 20. B times b squared is b to the power of 3. So when you multiply variables, you add the exponents, so the same base. And then we do 4 times 1 is 4, so this is plus 4. And then b times b is b squared. And then 4 times 6 is 24 times that b. So your final answer is 20b to the power of 3 plus 4b squared plus 24b, right? All we did was distribute that 4b all the way across. And then as we were naming, remember part of your what you're going to be quizzed on this week is naming these polynomials. So if there is, you name by degree first. So the biggest degree is a 3, so 3 is a cubic. So this is a cubic, and there's 1, 2, 3 terms, trinomial. So we're going to keep naming everything we do just to keep practicing that vocab. Okay, so that is number 1. So let's go ahead and look at number 2. Sometimes some people might like to use a multiplication box to do this this distribution, right? So if you wanted to do a multiplication box, you could do that. This is 1 by 1, 2, 3. So we would draw a 1 by 3 box, right? And on the outside, the 1 is negative 7h. And then on the top, we have 3h squared, negative, oops, make that a negative 8h, and negative 1. The box can be helpful with negative signs, especially if you mess up your negative signs a lot. Sometimes going into the box instead of just doing the lines and distribution can be helpful. Because we got negative 7 times negative 3, so that's negative 21. H times h, negative 21. Oh, that doesn't look like a 21. Let's try that again. Negative 21, and then h to the power of 3. And then we have negative 7 times negative 8, which is positive 56 h squared. And then we have negative 7 times negative 1 is positive 7 h, right? It just lets us do that multiplication, just like a multiplication table. It just lets us do that multiplication into the box. So negative 7 times 3, negative 7 times negative 8, negative 7 times negative 1. So here we have our answer is negative 21 h to the power of 3 plus 56h squared plus 7h. Right, there's my answer. This again is the biggest degree is a power of 3, so again it's a cubic. And there's 1, 2, 3 terms, trinomial. So it's another cubic trinomial answer. All right, so let's look at one more similar to these guys here. So let's move this over so we can see the problem nice and clear. All right, so we have this time we're going to have to do two pieces. So we have to distribute, or the box if you want. I'm just going to distribute, right? So we're going to distribute here. If you don't need to write out that step in the middle if you don't want to, if you're doing the math, or you can write it out if you wanted, right? This is 5x times 2x. You can use a dot if you wanted to, right? 5 times 2 is 10. X times x, x squared. And then you're going to do 5x times negative 5, right? So plus 5x, I like to use parentheses whenever there's a negative sign. So 5 times negative 5 is negative 25 times x. So that's that first part, right? This minus sign in the middle is the second part. So really, if we look at it this way, we have a first part here, and then we have a second part over here. So the second part on this side becomes negative 3x times 4x squared. So that's negative 3x times 4x squared, which is negative 3 times 4, which is negative 12. X times x cubed is x to the power of 3. And then we're going to do negative 3x plus 2 times 2x. So we have negative 3x times, oops, didn't mean to put that there, whoops. Negative 3x times 2x. So that is negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. X times x, x squared. And then we're going to do negative 3 times negative 3, negative 3x times negative 1. Negative 3 times negative 1 is a positive 3 times that x, right? So now I have 10x squared minus 25x minus 12x to the third minus 2x squared plus 3x. And then if we look at it here, we have an x squared term here, and I have an x squared term there. So I have a x term here and an x term here, and then we also have an x to the power of 3. Now I think if we have to put this in standard form, I believe in your homework we've talked about standard form. If you're being asked to put something in standard form, start with your biggest exponent first. So we're going to start with negative 12 x to the power of 3, because there's only one of those. And then we're going to take the 10x squared minus 6x squared is plus 4x squared. Minus 25x plus 3 is minus 22x. So there's my answer. So, and again, naming it, the biggest degree is a cubic because it is a power of 3. And there's 1, 2, 3 terms. All of these happen to be cubic trinomials, not on purpose. It's another cubic trinomial. So that is multiplying. Basically, that's just the distribution property, multiplying a non-monomial times a polynomial of any length. And you could do it 2 or 3 times, and then you just have to combine everything like we did up right here. Okay, so now we're going to talk about multiplying binomials. So remember, as you're going through this, if you need to pause any of this, as you're moving to take the notes, feel free to pause it and write stuff down. All right, so so there's 3 methods we're going to use for reviewing to multiply binomials. So I'm going to go through all 3 methods. I want you to pick the method that you like the best, and then when you're showing your work, just use that method. If you're not sure, you can try a couple out when you're doing your homework, but pick the method that makes the most sense to you. So the first method is just the distributive method, which says this. It says we're going to take and we're going to multiply this 3x here times everything in the second binomial. So we're going to take the 3x, and we're going to multiply it by 2x plus 5. And then we're going to take the 4, so plus 4 times the 2x plus 5, because you have to multiply everything in this binomial by everything in that binomial. So we're going to split this binomial apart here. So we're going to split this apart, and we have 3x and we have 4, and we're going to multiply both of those terms by the 2x plus 5. Right? So 3x times 2x here is 6x squared. 3x times 5, 3 times 5 is 15, so that's positive 15x. So there's the first part done. And then over here, we're going to do 4 times 2x, so that's plus 8x. And then 4 times 5, which is plus 20. All right, so now I have 4 terms. We need to combine the terms. So if we look here, we have, just change this to red. So I have an x here and an x here. Right? Those two can come together and become 23x. And then the rest of the problem just needs to come down. So we have 6x squared, because it doesn't have a term it's like, plus 23x plus 20. There is our multiplying those together. This is, if we're going to name it here, we have the highest power is 2, so that means it's a quadratic. There's 1, 2, 3 terms. That means I'm going to move over here and I'm going to name it. It is a quadratic. Let me fix that D. Quadratic trinomial. It's a quadratic because it's to the power of 2. It's a I'm missing an I in there. Sorry about that. Trinomial. It's a trinomial because it has 3 terms. All right, so that is the distributive method. It is a great method. When we go to when we actually start factoring after spring break, we will actually be using backwards distributive method for factoring. So it is a nice, easy method to use. The FOIL method is my absolute least favorite. I can never remember what needs to go what, so let's see if I do this right, because often I don't do it right. But FOIL, you might have learned it. I know a lot of teachers still teach it. They like it. FOIL starts like this. So let me change my color here. We're going to just go to red. We'll go to red first. So there, the F in FOIL means first. So you're going to multiply the first 2 terms together, right? So 3x times 2x. That's the F in FOIL. And I feel like I'm going to run into space here. I'm going to back up real quick and write that down again. A little bit lower, so I feel like I might need some space here. So that's the F in FOIL. The O in FOIL is the outer. So let's change this to blue. And then I'm going to put the O. So the O stands for the outers. You're going to multiply the 3x times the 5. So plus 3x times 5. That's the O. And then you got to do the I. The I is for inner. So let's change this to green. And we'll do the I right in here. The I are these guys right here. So it's minus 4 times 2x, right? Negative 4 times 2x. And then the last one is the L. Oh, you're not going to see that color. Let's see. We'll just go back to black for L. Then L is the last. So I'm going to put the L down here. So that means that it doesn't look very, oh, it stayed on blue. There we go. The L here means we're going to multiply, I did that backwards. See, I always do this wrong. I told you I don't like this one. It's the last 2 terms together. The negative 4 is the second term in the binomial, and the 5. So it's going to be minus 4, negative 4 times 5. So then you go 3 times 2 is 6, x squared. Then you go 3 times 5 is plus 15x. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8x minus 20. If you noticed, I used the same numbers for the binomials. I just changed some of the signs in the middle. Kind of shows you how you got to pay super attention to your signs when you're working on these problems. If we look here, again, we have the two terms in the middle are like. So 15x minus 8x is a positive 7x. So those two come together, and then the 6x squared comes down, and the negative 20 comes down. There is my answer, 6x squared plus 7x minus 20. Right? Again, this one, if we're going to name it, it has a degree of 2, so that means this one is also a quadratic. Let's go back to here. Quadratic. And there are 3 terms, trinomial. Right? So another quadratic trinomial is what we got when we multiply. Oops, shouldn't have done that. Let's go back to moving. There we go. When we multiply. So the distributive method is number 4. The FOIL method is number 5. My preferred method that I use more frequently than not is going to be number 6. So let's go ahead and flip the page when you get done with 4 and 5. Number 6, here we go. I like the box method. I think the box method for me is just easier to make sure we're organized. So the box method is just kind of like I showed you on the number 2 up above on this other page. So 3x minus 4 times 2x minus 5. So we're multiplying a two-term polynomial by a two-term polynomial. So to multiply a two-term polynomial by a two-term polynomial, we are going to draw, that's not good. Didn't want to do that, sorry. We're going to draw a 2 by 2 box. And we're going to multiply into that box. It doesn't matter which binomial you put on top and which binomial you put on the side. You just need to pick. So if I'm going to put the first binomial here down the side. So I have 3x and a negative 4. Don't forget the signs. That minus sign becomes a negative. And then on the top, I'm going to put 2x and negative 5, right? So my binomial, here's binomial number 1, right? And here is binomial number 2. We're going to use the box now to multiply. I'll change to red so we can clearly see this. So we're going to multiply, just like a multiplication chart. 3 times 2 is 6. X times x, x squared. And then 3 times negative 5 is negative 15 times that x. And then you have negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times that x. And then negative 4 times negative 5 is a positive 20. So the box lets us just do all that multiplication. It helps me not have to think about the signs so much. I feel like the math's a little bit simpler and more straightforward. The nice thing about the box too is when we go here, if you look, these are my like terms. They usually fall right in line with each other. So my answer here is 6x squared. Negative 15 and negative 8 is a negative, let's make it look like a negative 23x. And then that's a positive 20. So there's my answer, 6x squared minus 23x plus 20. So let's go ahead and just make a quick note about what we just did here. I'm going to make it in blue, right? So for this one, moved it down. Let's put it back up. There we go. Right, so you're going to draw a 2 by 2 box, and then one binomial on stop moving side, and one binomial on top. And then multiply into the box. So that's how you do, use the multiplication box method to do this, right? It's just an area model of this multiplication. And again, let's go ahead and name this. It is the degree of 2. So all degrees of 2 are quadratics. Doing lots of quadratics. Our whole next unit is on quadratics. And then there's 1, 2, 3 terms, quadratic trinomial. is what this is called. All right. Now, if you look down here at number 7, this perimeter problem, you get to cross it off. We are not going to do perimeter and area in unit 5. That's one of the things we have decided to cut out to make sure we get through all the most important content to the end of the year. So we're not going to focus on that. If you want any practice on that, I do have some practice I can give you from last year. So if there's anybody in here feeling confident about what we're doing and want some additional extra practice, send me an email and I can send it to you. Otherwise, you can ignore number 7. We do not need to worry about that. That means our notes are done. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk next when we do topic 5D.